June 22, 2025. Angeles National Forest, California. Monica Reza is hiking with friends. At some point, the group loses sight of her. They search, but she is gone. No confirmed explanation, no body, no answer. Reza isn't just another missing person. She was a materials engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, working in advanced materials research. And months later, another person with a connection to America's most sensitive military research would disappear. This time, it was a retired Air Force general. His name was William Neal McCasland. He left his Albuquerque home. His phone and glasses were left behind. A revolver was missing, and he never came back. 2 disappearances, 2 highly unusual cases. And then people began looking at the names around them. Los Alamos, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the Air Force, nuclear weapons research, fusion, advanced aerospace technology. Suddenly, this wasn't just one missing person case. It was a list. And depending on which cases are counted, that list contains at least 10 people who died or disappeared over several years. The FBI became involved. Congress demanded answers. And the internet did what the internet does. It connected the dots. But here's the problem. Some of those dots don't connect at all. And one of the most important cases has now taken a devastating turn. By April 2026, reports of deaths and disappearances involving people connected to U.S. nuclear, aerospace, and scientific programs had attracted enough attention to reach Congress. The House Oversight Committee asked the FBI, NASA, the Department of Energy, and the Department of Defense for information about the cases. The committee cited unconfirmed public reporting and national security concerns. But that doesn't mean Congress had discovered a conspiracy. It means Congress wanted to know whether there was one. And that distinction matters, because when you separate the cases, the story gets much stranger and much less simple. The first case takes us to Los Alamos, early May 2025. Anthony Chavez, 78 years old, disappears from his home in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Chavez was a longtime Los Alamos National Laboratory employee, reportedly working as an HVAC technician. He was last seen leaving his home on foot, and he remains missing. There is no established evidence connecting his disappearance to classified research. But then, just weeks later, another New Mexico case appears. June 26th, Melissa Casillas, 53. She worked as an administrative assistant connected to Los Alamos National Laboratory. That morning, she drove her husband to work. Then she realized she had forgotten her badge. She went home. Later, she brought lunch to her daughter. She was carrying on with an apparently ordinary day. Then around 2:15 in the afternoon, she was seen walking alone along State Road 518. Her car remained at home. Her wallet and purse remained behind. Her phones had reportedly been factory reset. And then, she disappeared. For almost a year, nobody knew what had happened to her, until May 28, 2026. A hiker found human remains in the McGaffey Ridge area of Carson National Forest. The remains were identified as Melissa Casillas. A handgun was found nearby. But here's the crucial part. Authorities have not publicly established how she died. The discovery changed her case from a disappearance into a death investigation. It did not prove murder, and it did not prove a connection to Los Alamos. It simply created another unanswered question. Then came another New Mexico disappearance. August 2025. Stephen Garcia, a government contractor working in nuclear security infrastructure, disappeared. He reportedly left home on foot, carrying water and a firearm. His phone, keys, and vehicle were left behind. He has not been found. 3 New Mexico cases, different circumstances, different people, but all connected in one way or another to sensitive government or national security work. And then came the case that pushed the entire story into national headlines. February 27, 2026. William Neal McCasland, 68 years old, retired U.S. Air Force Major General, former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. McCasland disappears from his Albuquerque home. His phone is left behind. His glasses are left behind. His hiking boots and revolver are missing. A sweatshirt is later found roughly a mile from his home. His wife calls 911, and she tells the dispatcher she has an indication he planned not to be found. That single detail would become fuel for an extraordinary amount of speculation, because McCasland had spent his career around advanced military technology, and Wright-Patterson has another reputation. For decades, the base has been associated with stories about classified aerospace programs and the alleged handling of material connected to the 1947 Roswell incident. But this is where we have to draw a hard line. The existence of Roswell claims is documented. The claim that Wright-Patterson possessed extraterrestrial debris has not been established as fact. There is no evidence that McCasland disappeared because of Roswell, and investigators have not established that his disappearance was connected to his former work. In fact, his wife reportedly pushed back against some of the theories, noting that his access to sensitive information was more than a decade old. So why did his disappearance attract so much attention? Because of who he was, and because of who disappeared before him. Monica Reza, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Advanced Materials Research, missing since June 22, 2025. McCasland, Air Force Research Laboratory, missing since February 2026. Reports have pointed to an overlap in their professional histories and advanced materials work. That connection is real enough to investigate, but it is not proof of a crime. And investigators have reportedly been examining whether there is any relationship between the cases. No confirmed connection has been established. Then look at JPL itself. Michael David Hicks worked there for more than 2 decades and contributed to missions including DART. He died in 2023. Frank Maywald, another JPL researcher, died in 2024, and Reza disappeared in 2025. 3 people associated with the same famous laboratory. That sounds alarming, until you examine what actually happened. Hicks had reportedly been ill. Maywald's public record does not establish a suspicious cause of death, and Reza is still missing. 3 cases do not automatically equal 1 cause. That is the central problem with the entire theory. Then there is Nuno Loureiro, an MIT professor, director of the Plasma Science and Fusion Center, a leading researcher in nuclear fusion. In December 2025, Loureiro was killed in a shooting. The suspect was a former fellow student from Portugal. That suspect was later found dead, with authorities determining the wound was self-inflicted. A motive was never publicly established. It was horrifying. But it wasn't an unexplained disappearance. Then came Carl Grillmeyer, a Caltech astrophysicist known for work involving galactic structure, dark matter, and exoplanets. On February 16, 2026, Grillmeyer was shot and killed outside his home. A suspect was arrested. Again, a terrible crime, but a crime with a very different set of circumstances from someone simply disappearing into the wilderness. And then there was another name that appeared in broader versions of the list. Jason Thomas, a pharmaceutical researcher who died after disappearing in Massachusetts in December 2025. His death was investigated as a drowning, with authorities reportedly finding no evidence of foul play. And this is where the viral narrative starts to break apart, because the list contains missing people, homicide victims, deaths with apparently non-criminal explanations, and cases where the public simply doesn't have enough information. Putting them all into one category makes the story more dramatic. It also makes it less accurate. So what does the FBI know? As of now, the public evidence does not establish a coordinated campaign against American scientists. The FBI has been involved in examining possible connections. Federal agencies have been asked for information. Congress has demanded briefings. But none of that means investigators have discovered a common culprit, and authorities have repeatedly cautioned against speculation. That matters, because there are 2 completely different stories you could tell. Story 1. A secret organization is eliminating scientists who know too much. Story 2. A number of unusual deaths and disappearances involving people connected to sensitive institutions attracted enough public attention that investigators decided to determine whether there was a connection. Right now, Story 2 is what the evidence supports. But Story 2 still leaves some uncomfortable questions. Why did several of these cases cluster around people working in national security-related institutions? Why did some disappearances involve phones, cars, or other belongings being left behind? Why did the cases become significant enough for Congress and the FBI to examine? And most importantly, is there actually a connection? Or are we looking at something humans are exceptionally good at creating? A pattern from coincidence. Here's what we know. Anthony Chavez is still missing. Monica Reza is still missing. Stephen Garcia is still missing. William Neal McCasland is still missing. Melissa Casillas is no longer missing. Her remains were found almost a year after she disappeared. A handgun was found nearby, and her death remains unresolved publicly. Other people on the wider list died in circumstances ranging from homicide to apparent accidents or illness. That distinction is everything, because there is currently no confirmed evidence that these cases form one coordinated conspiracy. But there is enough unusual information that federal investigators have looked at the possibility, and Congress has demanded answers. So perhaps the most frightening question isn't, who is killing the scientists? We don't know that anyone is. The real question is simpler. Why did this collection of cases become significant enough for the FBI and Congress to start asking the same question? Are these genuinely connected events? Or did the internet find a pattern where none existed? For now, we don't have the answer, and 4 people remain missing. 1 more was found dead. The investigation continues. And until someone can explain what happened to them, this story isn't over.